Okay, my name is Peter Bourke, and I live in Newport, Rhode Island. Well, most of the time. We're spending some time out here in Kalamazoo, Michigan, also, where we have a couple of grandchildren. But I sail mostly out of Newport, and I'm an American. Well, actually, I have dual citizenship, UK and US, but I'm traveling on a US passport these days. And my boat is a 2001 Open 40, Finot-Conq Open 40.
You were entered in the 2023 Global Solo Challenge. You couldn't start. What happened?
In the 2003 version, I got as far as Bermuda, and I was going to do my qualifier from Bermuda to A Coruña, which would have been well over 2,000 miles. And the boat was ready to go. I was ready to go. I stopped in Bermuda for what I thought would be 3 or 4 days. But unfortunately, I picked up COVID in Bermuda. First time I had it, even though I'd been vaccinated and whatever. But I picked it up, and that developed into double pneumonia. So the good people at the hospital in Bermuda suggested I go home. I did have the good luck to meet the sailmaker at Ocean Sails in St. George's, wonderful man named Steve Hollis. And he had a mooring that I could get at a reasonable rate. And I put my boat on the mooring there. And even though I was only a couple of days away from beginning my qualifier, I had to go home and recoup. And it took me a while to recover from that. And by the time I had gotten my health back, it was really too late. So my boat swung on a mooring there for some months, because then it got into hurricane season and the holidays, one thing and another, until I finally blasted it out of Bermuda and picked up the program. And I'll just say one more thing about that. I viewed that as a tremendous disappointment at the time. And it was, because as with every other competitor, I had a lot of work and effort and time and money into the project. But in retrospect, I think it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise. As you know, Marco, I think 16 people were at the start line for the last iteration. These races have a very high attrition rate. It's a very, very tough race. My gut tells me had I not gotten sick, I do believe I would have made the start to the 2023 version. I'm not at all confident I would have made it all the way around. I think I just didn't have enough time with my new to me boat. I had finished the refit, but we just hadn't spent enough time sailing together and dialing it all in. So now, of course, I have more time, and I think I've been putting that time to good use. And I hope to arrive in Vigo in a much, much stronger position to not just make the start, but hopefully go all the way around. I know there's always an element of random luck in these things, but as the old ancient philosopher Seneca said, luck is when opportunity meets preparation. So I'm trying to do as much preparation as possible, increase my luck as much as possible, and then que será, right? Whatever. So anyway, yes, I did miss the entering the last race. I got probably as close without starting as any other competitor. I don't know, but anyway.
If we take a step back, where does your passion for sailing come from?
Well, I had the very good fortune to do 2 transoceanic passages before I was 20. The first one was, and they were both on ships. I didn't get on a sailboat until much later, but my first was when my family immigrated from England to Canada, actually, and then we wound up in the States, but that's a whole nother story. When we immigrated, I was only 6 years old, and we took a ship from Scotland to Quebec, and it was 9 days. And even though I was only 6, I remember it quite well, because of course it was very out of the ordinary, very exciting. And then when I was about just turned 19, I was in the Marine Corps, U.S. Marine Corps, and I came back from Vietnam on a ship, on a Navy ship. And we went from Da Nang, Vietnam to Pearl Harbor, Hawaii in 16 days. It was a slow ship. But that was, I remember it as a very pleasant passage. We were going in the right way, you know, and so those two, even though there was no sailing involved, you know, they did give me kind of a passion for being at sea. And then also my grandmother, my English grandmother, had sent me some sailing books when I was very young, and I read those. And then over the years, like probably most of the other competitors, I've read books of the great single-handers, and always thought, wow, that would be a very cool thing to do. And then, of course, I did the OSTAR, the year that you did it in 2009. I didn't do that well, but I was still a little bit new to sailing. I didn't actually take up sailing until I was in my 40s. I got involved with career and child rearing and other things, but I did finish. I did sail in, and the OSTAR, as you know, is a very exciting event. And so those were kind of the seeds. But as far as sailing around the world, there really wasn't an event that appealed to me. Obviously, the Vendée Globe is for Olympian sailors with mega budgets. I wasn't in that league. The Golden Globe race, I admire those people immensely, but it really didn't appeal to me to get an older boat and go without electronics and so on and so forth. So when you put your program together, your event together, I remember I saw the email, I think it was Christmas Eve, like about 3 years ago. And almost immediately I said, I have to do this. And it's been a longer road than I thought. And initially I was going to do it in my cruising boat, an Outbound 44, which is truly a wonderful boat. But then the whole complications of the water ballast and this and that. So I decided, why not do it in a purpose-built boat for this, albeit an older one. And it's been a great learning curve for me. You know, I've never gone that fast in a sailboat as I have in my 40s. So it's been a great learning curve, and you know, you have to stay on your learning curve as you get older. Anyway.
What lessons would you say you've learned from sailing?
The first word that comes to mind is patience, because sometimes if there's no wind, there's no wind, you know, or I think patience, resilience, maybe a tenacity, those kind of things, and seeing the situation as it is. You know, when I look at other situations, I kind of think, oh, I wish this was different. Maybe the stock market, I say, oh, I wish that was doing a little bit differently, or this or that or the other. But when you're out on the ocean, you kind of have to look at what the situation is and what's the weather doing, what problems do you have with the boat. So I think it forces you to be in the moment, as they say, and deal with the situation as it is. And I think that develops patience and resilience. And so I guess those would be the main lessons that the ones I've learned so far anyway. Maybe I'll learn a few more as we go along. I'm sure I will, actually.
So what got you interested in solo sailing in particular?
I think it was the books. I think it was the first time I read Francis Chichester's book, Around the World. I was fascinated by it. To be honest, I didn't understand a lot of the terms he used. Like he would say, I'll shackle the number 4 jib to, you know, this or that. You know, he lost me. But then the second time I read it, I got it more. And so, and then there was just a lot of great books. Joshua Slocum, of course. Naomi James wrote a wonderful book. I think she was the first woman to sail solo around the world, if I recall correctly. And I've always been a big reader, and these books kind of captivated my attention. Frankly, it wasn't really on my bucket list, though. My bucket list included a long solo sail. And so I thought when I did the OSTAR, I'd kind of checked off that item. And so I know a lot of people in the Global Solar Challenge always want to sail around the world. And now it's really coming to fulfillment. I kind of felt like I'd scratched that itch when I did the OSTAR, but well, the itch came back, I guess. And as I say, your event seemed well suited for a serious but amateur sailor with a good boat, but not necessarily a brand new boat with all the latest expensive bells and whistles. As I say, I think within almost minutes of reading that email announcing it, I felt I didn't respond for a little while because, Jimmy Breslin had a great quote. He said, how did this go? The test of a good idea is how it looks after the hangover wears off. So I gave it a few days, and then I responded to you and said, I'm in. And then it was fairly easy to decide when I didn't make the 2023 version. It was fairly easy to decide to go for this one. And I think I'll just jump in with this. This is really, I'm pretty convinced, my last opportunity to do it. I am no doubt one of the older competitors in the Global Solar Challenge, perhaps the oldest. I'll be 76 when the race starts. But and at first glance, you think, oh, that's a disadvantage. And in some ways, it is. I'm not quite as fit as I was 20, 30 years ago. But in other ways, maybe it's not a disadvantage. We'll see. But I feel like I can do it now. And if, it is an incentive to go to the gym, I'll tell you that. If I wasn't signed up for this, maybe I'd say, no, I'll just stay home and watch a little TV or something like that. So it's good for that.
You mentioned many sailors. Do you have a sailing hero in particular?
Geez, I'm tempted to say everybody in the Vendée Globe and the Global Solar Challenge, but I'll name three people. I think in the Vendée Globe, there's two people I really like. One is Pip Hare, who you and I both know. I only met her briefly in the 09 version. But and the other is Boris Herman. And both of those two individuals seem to me, when I watch their videos from at sea, that whatever difficulties they may have, they never lose the appreciation of how fortunate they are to be out at sea. The beauty of the sea, the joy of being out there, the solitude. And I think their appreciation for the basic fact that they can be there kind of shines through. And also their tenacity and resilience when, look at Pip Hare, her mast came down. And within hours, she had a jury rig set and sailed, I think it was 10 days or so to get to Australia. And then in the last Global Solar Challenge, it was Mr. Robin. I'm blanking on his first name right now. But,
Louis Robin. Yes.
Yeah, Louis Robin. Yes. And I thought, talk about tenacity. He is pretty close to my age. I'd say, we're about the same age. And he just wouldn't accept no. And he finished your race. And obviously, I salute everybody who finished it, or everybody who, did a wonderful try. Look at Ronnie Simpson. He was all the way around the horn and, bad luck struck. Things can happen. So I'm hesitant to single out one, but Louis Robin, I really admire that tenacity. So I guess he would be one of the people on my list.
What would you say is your fondest memory of a time that you were sailing so far?
My fondest memory is actually something that happened that seemed to be a royal pain when it happened. Well, it was a royal pain. We were sailing back from the Caribbean, not on a race or anything, on my outbound 44. I had Mary and I were there, and we had a couple of friends, good sailors. And we had done a little motor sailing. And somehow or other, one of the spinnaker lines went over the side and got wrapped around the prop. So that was obviously a screw up that shouldn't have happened. But it put the engine out of commission, and we still had about 300 or 400 miles to go to get to Newport. And so I'm kind of saying, well, this is bad luck. But that night, we would totally be calmed. We would obviously have been motoring along had the prop not gotten stuck, but we would totally be calmed. It was a full moon. We saw 2 whales, and then we saw a pod of dolphins. I thought I was in a Disney movie. It was just like incredible sea life, incredible beauty. And I think if we just had the motor blaring away, we might have just blasted through that area and not seen it. So, and then we sailed the rest of the way into Newport Harbor, actually. So that was, I think, an example. Sometimes things seem like bad luck at the time, and then in retrospect, maybe it wasn't such bad luck. I was able to I toyed with going over the side, but it didn't seem, the wind came back. We had good sailing, so I thought I'll just deal with this little wrapped prop at the dock. So that's the memory that sticks out to me. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your sailing and racing experience.
Yeah, on the racing experience, my racing experience has been quite limited. I'll start with the high point, which was one year that I did the Bermuda 1-2, and we did come in first in our class in the double-handed leg. That was 2007, and that was great fun, but it was a very, very tight finish. And then it was actually kind of interesting because on the single-handed leg, the gooseneck of my boat had disconnected. It was kind of a long story there, but anyway. So I came in last on the single-handed leg and first on the double-handed leg. So from last to first, that was kind of fun. The OSTAR, I came in at the back of the pack because I lost my autopilot on day 5, and that definitely slowed me down. And then I've done, just a couple of little races. I don't have a lot of racing experience. I'm hoping to beef it up with some races this summer and maybe next winter in the Caribbean. And yeah, so my racing experience is rather limited. But I have done, I think, 5 passages back and forth to the Caribbean in my boat, and quite a few in other boats, because there's a whole, as you probably know, there's a whole migration in fall from the Northeast down to the Caribbean and back in the spring. So I've gotten some experience on different boats.
So at what point did your dream of a circumnavigation begin?
I guess it was in the back of my mind for many years. I didn't really, I have to admit, it was not really on my bucket list. Like I said, on my bucket list was definitely to do a long solo blue water sail. But I considered doing the OSTAR, the transatlantic, to kind of have ticked that box. So it wasn't really on my list anymore. I guess I wasn't necessarily interested in doing it without any other boats involved. And there were no other events that were kind of appealing to me or that I could even get in, obviously. So I can't, as opposed to, or as different to some of the other sailors in the Global Solar Challenge, I can't say it was something I always wanted to do, to sail around the world. But when I saw the opportunity to do it in this kind of a setting, it immediately appealed to me. And that appeal now has kind of stood the test of time, because I was I believe one of the relatively early ones to sign up for the 2023 event. And definitely for this event, as I just kind of rolled it over. But hopefully there'll be no more rollovers, and I'll be at the start line in Vigo. Yeah.
How do you plan to prepare from now to the start of the Global Solar Challenge?
Well, I plan to prepare as thoroughly as possible, mainly time on the boat, or tiller time, as some sailors call it. I have spent a lot of time working on my boat. I have put some miles on it. I've brought it up from Trinidad to Charleston. I did the first part of the refit in Trinidad and the second part in Charleston. And then, of course, I took it to Bermuda. I was stuck there for a while. Then I sailed it down to the Caribbean, and I did a little sailing down there. So I've put maybe 5,000 miles on the boat. The previous owner of the boat, an interesting fellow, told me that to be really comfortable with the boat, I would need to put 10,000 miles on the boat. And something about that kind of rang true. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little less, whatever. So I think I really need to put some more miles on the boat, and I need to do some more races. I think that there is some good racing in the Caribbean, and I think next year, in fact, my plan is to do some later summer races in the Northeast and to bring the boat to the Caribbean in the fall, to do some races in the Caribbean, and then to bring it over in the spring, either directly to Vigo or possibly to southern England, which would be a little logistically easier in some ways, but because my English is a bit better than my Spanish, although I can speak Spanish. But so exactly. But basically, the timeline I'm pretty set on. You know, Caribbean next winter, sailing it to across the pond in the spring of next year, and then I'll be there a full year. Well, I might be coming back and forth. I won't necessarily be on the boat for that full year, but I'll have a year plus between the time my boat is on the right side of the Atlantic to when your event begins. I'll just say, I remember when I did the OSTAR, I did doing a transatlantic to get to England in time for the beginning of the OSTAR from the northeast of the US is a bit of a challenge because, you know, you really have to do an April transatlantic. And most people are just taking the shrink wrap off their boats in the Northeast in April. So I only got to Plymouth a week before the start of the race, which turned out to be a little bit tight. I was less experienced then too. I had some problems on the race, although I did finish it. But this time maybe I'm going to go in the other way and get there with plenty of time. And there's other advantages too. You know, I haven't spent much time in Spain. It'd be an opportunity to travel around the country a little bit. I think my wife would enjoy that, and practice my Spanish, and then just do some serious sailing out of Vigo.
What do you think would be the biggest challenge in your preparations?
I think having the knowledge and capability to fix anything electronic that goes, or maybe let me drop the word electronic, to just to be able to fix any problem that might come along the way. You know, sailors are an extraordinarily resourceful group. And certainly the people in the Global Solar Challenge have proven that time and again. And people in many races proved that. I had a white collar job when I was in. I wasn't working with my hands and fixing things and so forth. So I think, as they say about cruising boats, you need to be able to fix it or live without it. Now, most of the stuff that I could live without are not going with me, right? It's not like my cruising boat. I don't have all these extra systems of pressure water and refrigeration and so forth. So I guess I'm taking it as a given that I need to get to sailing, more sailing miles. But then I need to be able to, you know, if the autopilot stops working or the wind instrument stops working, diagnose what the problem is, have the spares on board, and fix it. Because short of the mast coming down, I really, really don't want to make any stops on the way. Those words might come back to haunt me, but yeah, I think really being able to be technically competent in all these areas would be the biggest challenge.
How do you manage loneliness and mental pressure?
I've never really gotten lonely at sea. You know, sometimes when I used to live alone, I would get lonely, but at sea, I don't really, there just seems to be so much to do and so many things to occupy your mind whether it's routing, watching the weather, trimming the sails, fixing things, getting some sleep, et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't ever found loneliness to be a problem. And I love to read too if there's downtime. And now, of course, you could carry 1,000 books on a Kindle. And I suppose I'll have Starlink like everybody else. So maybe I'd even download a movie, although that seems a little weird, but to me. But yeah, so I think, and I think the OSTAR, when I had some problems on the OSTAR, it just taught me take it day by day. Don't think, oh, you've got so many miles to go, you've got so many days to go. Just day by day, what do you need to do now, kind of thing.
What role do family, friends, or a short team, if you have one, play?
I think they play a huge role. I think Mary, my wife, is incredibly supportive, and that would be very, very difficult if your better half wasn't very supportive for a venture like this. And my kids, I think, are a little taken aback, but I think they're basically supportive of it. And then I have kind of an informal short team. My good friend Tim Kent, who has done an around the world race, the same race that my boat was in, actually in 2003, 2004, the Around Alone race, I guess they called it at the time. And he had an open 50, so he's been very helpful to me. I have a sailmaker friend, Joe Cooper, in Newport, Rhode Island. And then the sailmaker who built the sails for this boat, Mark Washeim, with One Sails. So it's kind of an informal group, but certainly people I can pick up the phone when I have any sort of question and discuss it with. And then, that team might grow as we get a bit closer. But I think, because I think nobody really sails around the world alone. They sail solo, they're the only person on the boat. But to get the boat ready to go, it takes a crew, a team, however you want to put it. And certainly the people in Charleston, who I would consider have been a huge help to me. Charleston, South Carolina is a great sailing mecca. I've being a Northeast guy, I always thought of Newport, Rhode Island, and Annapolis, Maryland as the sailing centers. But Charleston is every bit as big of a sailing center, and they have great expertise there. It's a little tougher to train out of Charleston because it takes a long time to get out to the ocean, and there's a lot of traffic and stuff like that. But anyway, I have kind of an informal team.
Have you had a chance to connect to other skippers in the Global Solo Challenge?
Not really. No, I haven't really had a chance to do that here. I'm hoping at some point I'll meet Ronnie and congratulate him for what I thought was a great effort in the last thing. And next time, I'm sure he'll be a very tough competitor. But no, and maybe if I get over to Spain early, as is my plan, I'm thinking I'll probably have an opportunity to meet a number of the other competitors. But I haven't, I should say, I did chat with David Linger a few times. I never actually met him, face to face. But we had a few good chats as he was getting his boat ready to go. And he did a great race, as you know, and I sent him a note afterwards. But no, that's about it, yeah.
Tell us about your boat.
So my boat is an open 40 Finot-Conq built in France in 2001. And I can give you a history of it very quickly. Its first name was Baronessa, and I don't know anything about that. I don't think it was owned very long by the person who bought it then. The second owner, Koji Shireshi, sailed it in the Around Alone as Spirit of Yuko was its name. And then a gentleman named James Berwick bought it, who was an adventurer, I guess you would say. He didn't compete in any races with the boat, but he did sail pretty close to around the world in it. with his wife and 2 young children, believe it or not, because it's not exactly a cruising boat. But they were dismasted a couple of 100 miles from, I forget the exact port, but anyway, Chile, a couple 100 miles from Cape Horn. And the Chilean Navy, God bless them, towed him in to this port in Chile. And he was there for a while until he was able to source a new mast. And then he sailed the boat back up to Trinidad. And then his family was growing. And so it was too big for an open 40. So the boat sat on the hard in Trinidad for a while. And then I saw it, and I'm not completely sure what captivated me about it. It might have been the boat has, in the previous owner, he had put out some really marvelous sailing videos. His wife is a photographer, very good photographer, and I think she did the video work. And I thought to myself, well, if that's a secure enough boat to sail around the world with young children on it, maybe I can get it around the world. And you know, the price was right. One thing, when I looked at the boat, I said, this boat needs everything, but I don't think I quite realized what everything was. Everything is a lot on a boat, so it did need a complete refit, which won't surprise anybody who's done these kinds of things, I suppose. But I did, like I say, the first half of the refit in Trinidad, and then sailed it up with a couple of people to Charleston. And it was kind of funny. We sailed it up there. The sails were literally falling apart. We threw them in the dumpster when we got to Charleston. But they made it up. We put a lot of patches on them. But I think it's a wonderful boat. It's all carbon. It's very light. It's about 8,000 pounds in totally light condition. And so it's a light, fast, strong boat. You know, I think it's a great boat for this. I wish it had a little bit more cockpit protection, but you can't have everything. So I guess I'll buy some very good foul weather gear. But I think the boat is good, and I think it sails well. I have a wonderful suite of sails from One Sails, and so I'm pretty excited by it.
The format of the Global Solo Challenge is a little different from other events. Do you like the concept of staggered starts?
I do. As I say, my racing experience is somewhat limited, so I don't know that my perspectives on some of these things are set in stone, but I like the idea. And it gives all the racers, I think, a lot of incentive. And I think people can disagree on various things about weather systems and this and that and the other. But at the end of the day, luck always plays a role. You know, if maybe you start late and you get just the best weather systems possible, or you don't, you know. But I like the idea, and it certainly would. I mean, my goal is to get around safely and then to do it as efficiently as possible. But it certainly would, having somebody to aim at gives you an incentive, you know. And you say, I should be able to pass this person who's in a slower boat, and in 7 days or 4, whatever it is, you know. So yeah, I do like it. And I think for anybody watching the race, it's more interesting. And I think that's a big consideration these days, you know. So yeah, I think it's good.
Do you like the choice of Vigo geographically as the start point?
I do. I've watched a few, you know, YouTubes on Vigo to try and get a sense of it. And both Vigo and Acromeño seem like pretty nice places, actually, and good places. This seems like it might be a little simpler to slip out of and get into racing mode. Maybe those orcas can stay up there around Acromeño and don't get the word that the venue has changed. That would be nice. But no, it seems like a good starting spot. Yeah.
Do you intend to link your participation to any kind of social message?
I do. I think it's almost a little bit selfish to do something like, I mean, people do this obviously because of an inner burn to do it. You do it because you have the fire in the belly to really want to do this kind of event. But I think if you can link it to something bigger than yourself, I think that is a commendable thing to do and a worthwhile thing to do. I am in a discussion now with a linkage. I don't really want to specify that now, but hopefully soon. And it won't be a sponsorship because I don't think I'm likely to get any sponsorship money, but it will be an affiliation. So we'll see how that goes, and if that's successful, I'll post something on that.
If anyone out there is thinking of getting into offshore sailing or thinking of sailing around the world, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to go for it. I think it's been one of the most wonderful things I've done, the time I spent at sea. I think it clears your mind. I think it's just an opportunity to see great beauty. There's other things like it, mountaineering, backpacking. It's not the only way, but it's the sea, as you know, it's beautiful. It's always changing. It clears the mind. I think it's a wonderful thing. I have for many years been part of a group in the United States called Offshore Passage Opportunities. Offshore Passage Opportunities out of Long Island, and they link up sailors onto boats who are going doing passages. Sometimes it's across Long Island Sound. It's a day sail. Sometimes it's a very long passage, transatlantic or whatever. But I did a lot of sailing with them after I retired, and it gave me an opportunity to get a lot of experience. And usually you don't have to be super experienced. You have to have the right attitude. You have to know the basics of sailing. But my point here is I think you can get opportunities to do serious ocean passages, and you don't need to own your own boat. And you don't need to spend a ton of money. You really just need the money for some foul weather gear and a ticket home. And you need to make some effort to find those connections, which could be walking the dock, or it could be an outfit like Offshore Passage Opportunities, or I'm sure they have similar ones in Europe. So I would encourage somebody to do that. And then if they find it's for them, then get a small boat. Because a friend of mine said, if you can sail a small boat well, you can sail a bigger boat. You just have to learn systems. But some people learn how to sail on a bigger boat, and then, I don't think they're as good a sailor. So I say, get a small boat, and get your sailing skills up to speed. And then later on, you want to get a bigger cruising boat, you can always learn the systems,
There is anything else that you want to add?
No, I would just say kudos to you, Marco, for putting together this event. I think when I first read about it, I said, I wonder how this is going to work out. It's no small endeavor to put together an event on this scale. And you're dealing with people from really all over the world. And you pulled it off. And it was a great event. I mean, look how many people followed it. Now, you did have some interesting and really wonderful personalities in it, like Cole Brower, who, besides being a phenomenal sailor, is just a wonderful personality. I hope I get a chance to meet her one day. But kudos to you for putting it together, and I hope everything goes smoothly for you, getting it ready for the next one. And I guess that's all I have at this point.